Boom, 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 everybody. Happy Saturday again. I hope you're having a great Saturday and a great weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell and want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that, I'm just ecstatically crazy about. You know that by now. Oh, man, I am just so happy to be back for another great episode. You know the drill. Hop in. Tell me where you're tuning in from while I make sure that, we are going live where we are supposed to be. We are here each and every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook group, which I'm getting ready to check right now. Last week we were back live. The Facebook group and the website for the show. So I just want to make sure that, like I said, we're going live like we're supposed to be doing. Okay, let me make sure here. I am live on LinkedIn. Thank goodness. And it looks like I'm live on I am live on in the Facebook group. So I feel pretty good. 2 weeks in a row without a hitch going into the Facebook group community. So, hey, I feel pretty good about that. And while I'm talking about that, like I said, we're at our YouTube channel. You can check us out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you go on over there, youtube.com. /Don Terrell, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff so you don't miss out on when the show goes live and when great content goes up on the channel. So definitely get plugged in there as well. Like I said, we are seems to be rocking and rolling in the Facebook group community. So make sure you become a Facebook member. Follow us, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. Definitely want you to be a part there. We have a lot of great fun industry news, sharing all kinds of topics, having great conversation, all around fun. We also have an Instagram page that you can be a part of as well. Follow us, Instagram.com/The Color of Motion. And again, not only on those channels, but again, you can also watch it on the website, thecolorofmotion.net. For sure, but make sure you get plugged into one of those channels there. We definitely want you to be a part of our community and family, and we're trying to grow it. So, don't want you to miss out on anything. Like I said, we've been having some amazing episodes. Again, hop into the comments. I want to hear from you. Want to get some interacting feedback from you because this is going to be a great episode for sure. I've been looking forward to this. Also, the store is open. Make sure you hop on over to thecolorofmotion.net/swag. Pick you up something nice. We got some great t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. And again, I'm always putting things into the store and kind of reimagine and revamp the store. So go on over and pick you up something. If there's something that you might want to see in there, shoot me a message. But the one thing that I do request is if you pick you up something, take a picture of yourself and send it on over to me so I can share it on the show, share it in the channels like I'm doing here as well. As you can see, I got my, I call this my Superman design, but Color of Motion swag. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of you in it as well. What else? Like I said, I think I got all the little housekeeping stuff. Before I forget, I want to thank the sponsor for today's episode, dggraphics.com. If you're looking to level up your business or your brand with some great content, video content, 2D, 3D, motion design, animation, like I said, we do all the overlays and graphics for this show and keep us looking good. Definitely make sure that you check them out because you'll get some great work. dggraphics.com. for always sponsoring the show. So had to get that in there. So thank you for that. Well, I think, like I said, we're kind of, ready to get the show on the road. Definitely looking forward to diving into this episode. I hope you are as well. Like I said, I wanted to hear from you, so always throw your comments in there, and I'll definitely throw them up on the screen for sure, give you a shout out. But I think, without further ado, we're about ready to kind of get this ball kind of rolling there. What do you say? Wow. And we are back and ready to get this one on the road. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this episode for a while. I've interviewed a couple of his partners that work at the studio that he works at. So I've had a few people from Magic Carpet Studios that he works with on the show. So looking forward to sitting down and talking with my next guest here for sure. So without further ado, my next guest, born Isaac, I hope I get this right, Matui Thomas, a Nigerian screenwriter and writer currently serving as head of story department at Magic Carpet Studios, a premier animation studio based out of Lagos, Nigeria, with offices here in the States, in Delaware, and the United Kingdom, London. His produced credits include the award-winning shorts SIP, Super Dad, A Place to Play, Dear Diary, The Right Decision, amongst others. He's also the lead writer, showrunner for the first animated sitcom from Nigeria titled Meet the Igwes, a satire series about class struggle, family love, and the keen struggle to be successful in a very difficult and less privileged society. He also adapted the classic African novel, The Passport of Mallam Ilia. We'll get that. We'll ask him. Into an animated film currently 70% into production and scheduled to be released under the same title early 2025 by Magic Carpet Studios, becoming the first 2D animated feature by a Nigerian studio. Aside from writing, which he absolutely loves, he's got a huge interest in teaching as well. For that, he periodically organizes writing and animation masterclasses, drawing from his practical experience and also from his own learning experience with Vancouver Animation School and other schools he studied from. He's done projects with other studios and companies such as Kukaya, a studio in Kenya, Cartoon Network Africa, Sesame Workshop, most recently, Baboon Animation, amongst others. Everybody, please, that's a long resume. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special friend and guest, M.I. Thomas. Yeah. M.I. Super excited about getting you on the show. I've been looking forward to sitting down with you, brother, for a while.
Man, I just felt like he just brought me up in the boxing ring. I mean, with all the noise and everything, I just felt like I'm going levels.
Oh man, like I said, it's been such a joy and a pleasure connecting with you. Like I mentioned earlier, I've had a couple other others from Magic Carpet on the show. I've been following you in the studio for a while, and I know a lot of content and movies and features are now starting to come out of Africa, not just Lagos, Nigeria, but other places as well. Africa is really kind of, making its mark now, and
Right.
it seems to be kind of coming into its own as it pertains to the industry. Is that how you see it? Africa is really now starting to get a voice for the content, and the creators are now starting to, be shown.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, some other people would tell you it's time for Africa. I mean, we're just coming into our own right now with the world being more open to our own kind of stories. Because a lot of people grew up and start from the States, Hollywood, and from the Asian market, to the anime, the manga, and all things like that. But it's not so common to find African stuff in the market, in the mainstream market, as
Yeah,
it is happening right now, with Kugali, Iwaju, and
yeah,
projects coming
yeah.
up like that. I mean, I can absolutely back that up by saying it is indeed time for Africa.
Yeah, yeah, you really kind of spot on in that. Like I said, when you think animation, it's either U.S. or manga, anime.
Yeah,
You don't really, like I said, Africa wasn't really the kind of continent that you thought
no,
of when you saw when you thought of animation. But with companies like Disney now starting to partner with creators over there, Triggerfish, all these other studios and creators now um, are really starting to come into a spotlight. And like you were saying, stories, people are now more open to diverse stories, and they're kind of hungry for diverse stories. So the industry over there really is kind of starting to come into its own. Um, for you, I kind of like to back up before I move a little forward in that thought. What was that thing that kind of got you that sparked that interest for you in writing and writing for animation? What were the things that you saw early on, or did you come into this kind of passion a little later on in life?
no, no. I mean, I've always been a writer. Like I wrote my first piece when I was about 11 years old. So I come from a place where we do a lot of oral storytelling. So I grew up around storytellers, people who just love to tell stories. So it wasn't something that I just got into like that. I had real foundation to that. So when I got into, I mean, I'm just giving a little background to
Yeah,
how I got into this journey. So when I got to higher institution at kind of one of the favorite universities around here for my bachelor studies, and I studied mass communication actually. So there was a lot of writing, but it wasn't creative writing like that. But I've always had it in me to tell stories just the way my grandmom used to tell me all the stories, very funny African stories, the tortoise, the hare, the monkeys, the
yeah,
lions, and all of that. And I've always been fascinated with the stories. So growing up, I was like, okay, I don't live in that time where the monkeys and the baboons talk,
yeah, yeah. You're in
but
a
I'm surrounded by people. Yeah, I'm surrounded by people who talk. So how
yeah.
about I tell the
You're what
stories
they call the
in the way
younger
that, yeah.
generation.
Yeah, I feel like well, I never saw a snake steal from the rabbit, but I've seen a couple of people around my neighborhood who do these things, who act this way. I
Yeah,
mean, they make one interesting bunch of people. So how about you put some spice into it and tell these people stories? So when I got done with studying mass communication, that was when I got into writing professionally. This was the year 2012.
Yeah.
And that was when I started writing my short pieces, just ghost writing for a couple of YouTube channels for some independent producers. But I was doing live action. I wasn't doing animation.
Yeah, I was
I had
just
not
getting
come
ready
into
to
the
ask you
animation
that.
scene.
Was it I was just getting ready to ask you that. Was it from your perspective live action stuff, and when did you kind of come into animation and writing for animation and thinking, wow, um, my stories can be brought to life, or my stories can have a much just wider imagination with the things that could be created in animation. I mean, even though live action, can get pretty animated.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So two things actually. I mean, it's not exactly one of my most proudest things to say, but one of the reasons why I made the switch to animation is just the reality of the industry around here. You understand? So we are not at that point where you can you have all the big budgets to do everything that you have, and I have crazy ideas. When I say I have crazy ideas, I had crazy stuff. I mean, people look at me and like, you out of your mind? You can't produce this yet. So I mean, I got tired of hearing all of the things that you can't produce this year. You don't have you don't have the kind of acting
Yeah,
prowess to being listen screen. You don't have the big budget. I don't think anybody is going to give you $10 million to make this film. You're not even going to get 10 million in your country's currency to produce
yeah,
this. So I mean, this is not happening. So I mean, I came face to face with that reality, and I thought about something. I said, okay, if I'm doing animation, it's just my mind and a vast empty space as much as
yeah,
I can stroll around. So I mean, I can sit in front of my computer, all these crazy ideas are in my hands to bring to life. So that was when I made the switch to animation. I didn't start writing my first animation script until I came to Magic Carpet Studio. So, and that was when we started working on the adaptation of the epic novel, The Passport of Mallam Ilia. It's actually Ilia. It's
yeah.
Passport of Mallam
Ilia,
Ilia. So
Ilia.
it's a very popular novel in the start. So when we got talking about the whole thing, it was the same thing that I was thinking all those years back. You can't do a live action adaptation of this. You don't have anything. You need a Marvel like kind of budget
Yeah,
to produce something like this. We're talking about I mean, the budget of an entire small African nation. You
yeah,
don't have that kind of money to do that. But if you have the creativity, you can actually do it in animation because all you need is to sit in front of your computer surrounded by people who think like you, and
yeah,
you guys can bring that vision to life.
yeah,
And that was
yeah,
when I officially started my journey into animation in the year 2017. So
yeah,
that was when I said, okay, now that I want to write for animation, I understand the medium allows me to go as haywire as I can get with my creativity. There's just no limitation. There's a lot of room for exaggeration, a lot of room for things that even physically the human body cannot do, but animated
yeah,
characters can do all of that. So come on, why not? And then I just got into it. But that's not to say I'm not acknowledging the shows and the films that I saw that influenced me to actually get into that. Shows like Boondocks, Simpsons, Family Guy, especially Boondocks. I
yeah,
mean, because characters look like me. Um, they don't actually sound like me because we come from different cultures, but there's a lot of similarities with each other, and I just got into it for the sake of that, telling my kind of stories without any kind of limitations of budget, of acting, or anything. I just went for what was convenient with where my talent is at the time. And
yeah,
so that's
yeah.
basically it.
Um, but but with that, you always knew or had an idea that you wanted to write. You didn't know how that was going to manifest out, whether animation, live action. You just knew you wanted to be a writer, or did you have an idea, like I said, when you were maybe younger, that you might have a different profession or something like that, or were you always just solely focused on I want to be a writer,
Yeah, yeah. I've always known, not exactly a writer, but I've always known that I was going to tell stories to be a
tell
filmmaker.
stories?
You understand? So even when I was growing up, I did a bit of drawing myself. So I still do a bit of drawing, not as as great as the guys in my studios, but I have a pretty good idea of what I can represent, what I'm trying to draw. So I've always had that, and I was pretty good with cameras for a very long time. I'm still very good with cameras. In fact, my specialty when I studied mass communication was pretty much cinematography. So I know how to use cameras very well. So I've always known from a very young age that I was going to get into filmmaking.
Yeah.
But if I will be honest with you, all these years I thought I was going to be a director, a cinematographer, things like that. But when I got into writing, I realized that I'm actually a lot more talented in writing than I
Directing.
am in handling cameras and all of that. Now
Yeah.
I do have the ability to interpret other people's visions, but I
Yeah.
think if I do write my things down, it brings my expression a lot clearer than
Well,
any other form.
yeah, and I definitely think those other skills definitely help you and support you in your writing because you're able to visualize how you see things or how you would want things visually, when you're sitting down writing the story. I would think it'd be much easier. Just like with animation, somebody that understands photography and lighting, it just makes their animation better if that's they're doing that as well because they understand, and cameras like the focal length of a camera, the angle of your shot, and the visual that you're trying to get across. So I definitely feel like having those skill sets is a great thing for a writer, for sure. Just like, I guess, to a certain extent,
Yeah,
writing, knowing writing and how to craft a story is going to, if you're an animator, might help you in your animation because you understand the
oh,
characters and the story.
oh yeah. I mean, 100%. I think if you ask me, what is that one thing that has set you apart from some of the other writers? I can tell you it's just additional skills that I have because animation is a pretty visual medium, very visual. I mean, in animation, the first director in the line of directing an animation project is the writer. And if the writer does not have a vision of the project, the writing always comes out, inadequate, so to say. But if you do have a very good sense of vision, your writing is going to just capture exactly what you intend to put out there. And that's why I have wonderful working relationships with the artists and the directors in my studio because I'm able to visualize, just make a lot of contribution in the visual aspect of it from my writing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm curious, how you're, because you say you used to listen to, your grandmother's and other people's stories, elderly, kind of in that next generation. I won't say elderly, but in the generation, before you.
Yeah.
How was your family and just other people encouraging with your desire to do writing and tell stories and visually now using animation, because and you can answer this as well. It seems like that's kind of the thing, especially over there. You got the younger culture that's grown up in technology. They can get into doing, they want to be creative, but then you got the older generation that they don't see animation as a very viable thing to do or necessary thing to do. I mean, did your parents encourage you? And also, do you see that as kind of the overall arching kind of feeling over in Africa where the older generation doesn't quite get the power of animation, because they didn't, was it something that was just normal or everyday? You know, I guess if you could understand kind of what I'm saying.
Oh man, I do understand you 100%. I mean, I can tell you, I never got that kind of support that you're asking about. I mean, I never got it. Not from my immediate family, not from my close circle of friends. No, I did not get that. No, sir, I did not. Because okay, so my parents especially, my dad and my mom wanted me to be a lawyer. And I said, look, I'm just gonna be a shitty lawyer, right? I'm never gonna win one single case. Like I just don't know how to go argue things that are not in the quickest sense. I mean, I don't want to just start coming a lot of cases, just go and stand before a judge and say, Your Lordship, this dude did this or he didn't do that. I just don't know how to do that. But I can write a story about a lawyer who can do this, who can do that, and it's gonna look great. And my mom never forgave me for not studying law. She never forget me for doing that. But so there was just not a lot of support for that, but not because they just did not want to support. They come in from a reality that you cannot escape.
Yeah,
So because of what we are in the country, a lot of parents just want the kids to go study something that they can quickly get a job.
yeah,
You understand? You study law, you can go out there representing people, you get paid because that's just the goal. You get paid. Now, if you're a medical doctor, you can go out there and do a whole lot of stuff. But you tell them you want to write stories for a living. The first thing is who is going to read this? And then you tell them you're going to make films. And then they look at you like, this guy has lost his mind. And then you just make it worse by telling them you want to write for animation. Oh, goodness me. You want to write for animation. They don't understand the medium of animation. Animation is saying that's something for kids, for pastime. You know, people don't really understand what it goes into making animated films. I mean, you walk up to somebody and they ask you, what do you do for a living? And you tell them that I'm a screenwriter and I write for animation. It's just actually okay. So what is your job? And you're like, no, I write stories for automation. They're still waiting for you to say, this is my job. You understand? So it's just basically the reality, and that's what we don't have a lot of writers
yeah,
for animation. I mean, it's bad enough for somebody to get into professional writing for live action films,
yeah,
but it's just a different conversation when somebody says I'm writing professionally and
yeah.
specifically for the medium of animation.
Uh,
The medium itself is grossly misunderstood, let alone the writing aspect of it. I mean, man, it's a
yeah,
whole different.
yeah. I can imagine that it was so much tougher. I think it's, I would hazard to say it's a little bit easier now that you've gotten, things out there like Iwaju and Kizazi Moto, these studios that,
Yeah,
like I said, because they are exposing a lot more Africans, that animation, this is what animation is, and you can really get, really elaborate and really make a living and have a powerful message with animation, much more so than, like I said before, animation started to grow there in the country, or really the exposure, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty sure
yeah,
there's always been kind of creatives. They just like you have have to really search out for their kindred spirits, other people that are interested in animation more so than here in the States. I mean, we've always had Disney, you know, so it was kind of, even then it was kind of, like I said, something that, okay, it's something that can make money and it's part of the culture here, animation, and something that just, like I said, it's hard. But even so, it's hard. Like I said, I've had a lot of guests that, one, when they were younger, didn't know they can make money, in animation, or that you can actually get paid, you know, and make a living doing it. And then two, like I said, most parents, I think, want every child, even though even over here, they expect them to get those, typical jobs that, provide them a good living, so to speak. So I'm pretty sure it was really hard, over there. Uh, what's what's been your experience, or what was your kind of experience going to school and starting to, like I said, get more exposed to writing for film and developing story? What was kind of the thing you kind of pulled away from your higher education that's really kind of helped you? Was it the
oh,
connections? Was it the things that you learned? What things did you kind of pull?
yeah. So starting from my bachelor's days, I mean, I had a group of I had a huge support base in my tutors, in my lecturers, people who just love to read stuff for me. Because I used to make a lot of contribution to the campus magazines, to some of the daily newspapers we have around here. So I send stories to them over the weekend, sometimes in form of letters to the editor. So I had a fan base in my lecturers and some of my colleagues way back from my days in the university. So when it started from there, some of them took a lot of interest in me and then get me pointers. They said, since you're making the transition to writing for screen, not just doing your prose writing. This is what I think you can do. Sign up for courses. So the very first course I started was even way before I started writing professionally. This was in 2010. I was still an undergraduate, still studying for my bachelor's in mass communication when I did my first diploma program in writing from medicine school, Ellen Studios in London. But it was an online program, and it wasn't. That was when we were just getting into the whole online thing around here. 2010, which is about 15 years ago. So I did my first 6 month program in in professional screenwriting. But it was a general introduction, not for animation. Remember,
Yeah.
I said I didn't get into animation until much later. But that was my first step into getting into the field. So I did that, and when I graduated, I started signing up for courses online. And when I did eventually got into professional screenwriting, I did a whole lot of this master classes online. From masterclass.com, I signed up for a Spike Lee masterclass program
Yeah. Yeah.
online. I did a whole lot of that, and so I did about at least 2 dozens of things like that. Just passed up a lot of certificate, a lot of diploma, 6 month, 8 month, 9 month programs. I got into screenwriting
Yeah.
um, properly got into that. And so when I started writing for animation, I discovered that okay, now you have to make the transition into a specialty. You're not just writing screenplays for live action. If you're going to write for animation, you need to understand the medium professionally as it is. So I started reaching out to people, trying to get a couple of advice. And one of the most helpful tips I ever got, which actually led me to Vancouver Animation School, was from Rodney Burns. Rodney was one of the primary writers for Boondock. And then I read one of his graphic novels, Philadelphia. I think I read all the issues in the Philadelphia series, and I reached out to him on Instagram when I was using Instagram. Then I mean, I'm not really a social media guy,
He
if
said,
you
not an
know
Instagram
that.
guy now.
But yeah, so I got in touch with him. I told him, I said, okay, I've been watching Bundas for a very long time, and this is it, this is that, this is everything I ever wanted to do. But now I just need direction. What do I do from here? I said, okay, you need to study a lot of animated content. You need to talk to as many people as you can. You need to read a lot of animated scripts and understand the differences between writing for live action and writing for animation, and just generally understand animation. And so I checked out everywhere, the only school that I could afford then that allowed me to study in the most convenient manner was the Vaness program in animation. To sign up for it, and then it gave me a very pretty great idea of the entire medium of animation. And then I picked it up from there. One masterclass after the other in animation, one diploma program after another, and that's how I just got into that. And then I started getting a lot of contacts from traveling, going to festivals around Africa and a few other places outside of Africa. When I went to Annecy Festival in France, that was when I met Mike, the guy who was running Boona Animation.
Yeah.
And ironically, I was working with him without even knowing he
Knowing.
was the guy because we were doing an animated project for them called Garbage Boy. It's on Cartoon Network right now. So I didn't even know this was a guy. So we were just talking, and he said what he's been communicating with this guys, and then it's this guy who was leading the story department for them, and then he mentioned my name. I said, okay, do you know this guy you're talking about? They said, well, he hasn't met him yet, and then I said, okay. Maybe I'll introduce you to the guy tomorrow. And then I didn't tell him I was the one. Much later before we did that. So and that was how I got along with Mike. And then the other guys, the Kenyan studio. It was a studio project. I got in touch with them. We were supposed to work on the project with the Peter there. It was Super Tema. That was just we just got talking with them, online. It's like, okay, we've seen a couple of stuff that you guys have done. Can you also send us spec script over on this characters that we created? Could we see something? And then we did a whole lot of that. And everyone gave us a pass back. She said, "Oh, we want to work with you guys. You guys really have unique perspective of storytelling." And so far it's been like that. I mean, I've made a lot of contacts from film schools, my teachers, other colleagues that I've studied together with, and then doing a lot of collaborative projects with people that I've never met, never seen, one on one. It's just been like that. I mean, so much that I can say. I think I'm meant for this. I mean, this
Yeah,
is this is
yeah.
where I belong.
And
This
that's
is my
awesome.
thing.
And that's an awesome thing to realize what you're meant for. Everybody just jumping on. We're having a fun conversation with my guy M.I. Thomas. Mr. Dewan, appreciate you tuning in there. Happy Saturday to you. He wishes you M.I. a happy Saturday as well. I always thank you for supporting and coming to the show there, Dewan, for sure. Um, what was the one thing um, you did realize was for you was the difference between when you were learning, making that switch over to animation? What was the difference that you kind of picked up on when write that's different from writing for animation versus writing for live action? When your friend told you to watch animation, learn how to write for animation, what was that difference that you learned writing for animation that you had to change that you were using when you were writing, thinking maybe live action?
Yeah. So the very first thing I noticed. Now here's the thing. Writing live action, just like writing television is different from writing for cinema. It's also it's also the same. Writing animation, television. Your series,
Yeah,
your Boondocks, your your Loud House, your Good Times. It's different from what you're writing for cinema. Like I mean, feature films. They're completely different. But
yeah,
one thing they have in common, and which is one of the differences with live action, is animation is a lot more descriptive than live action films. So when I'm writing live action scripts, there are a lot of things that I'm leaving to the discretion of the director.
yeah,
I don't even have to give him directions. I don't call out the shots for the director. I don't do any of that. When you do that, some directors get offended. I'm like, no, just write me the story. I'm going to take care of that. But when you're writing for animation, you are going to do all of that. It starts with you. You're going to call out the shots first. You're going to describe the scenes in as much detail as you can because it's your script the storyboard artist is going to use to have a sense of direction for the kind of shot they're
yeah,
going to create. It is your script that somebody doing concept, art and background and everything is going to also work with. It's how you describe the thing. It's how you describe how you the placement of props, the direction of the light coming in, the kind of shot, and how the characters interact with the environment. So there's a lot of interaction with the environment in your writing in animation than it is in live action. Now you can write a live action scene and just it's just a conversation between two people. You can say it like that. Don Terrell and M.I. Thomas having a conversation. And then you can just write some things and leave it like that. The director might decide to say, I want this thing to play out this week. Don is going to be carrying this thing and moving around here. This is
yeah,
ultimately up to the director. But in animation, you need to explicitly paint that picture. If the character is moving this way, it's part of what you're writing. Because what the animation director is going to do is to interpret to a large extent what you've already given him, not begin to bring some things out from the blue. So one of the major differences in animation is a lot more descriptive. The live action, it's a lot more visual in terms of how you paint the scene that live action do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand? And then another difference is I understand when you write a live action film, even if you're writing a fantasy project, you need to keep things in the realm of common sense. I mean, you need to work with the human anatomy. If your character has to do certain things, even if they're stunt performances, it has to be within reason. That's what directors will tell you. But when
Yeah.
you're writing for animation, it gives room for exaggeration, regardless of the medium, which is 2D, 3D, whatever. And then that leads me into a little more deeper difference. If you're writing for 2D animation, because it's two-dimensional, there's no depth. There's no none of all those things. So the cartoon's movements are limited as opposed to when you're writing for 3D. But that's like I said, it's a lot deeper differences between writing 2D and writing 3D. But
Yeah.
overall, when you're writing for animation, you're the first line you're the first in line of director. You're going to have to describe things a lot in more detail than you're going to do in live action. You're going to call out the shots. You're going to even describe how the scenes look like in terms of color and everything. Just basically paint everything the way you will see it on screen, in a more detailed fashion that you would do in live action.
Live
And then
action.
another thing that I said is animation allows for exaggeration of the human anatomy or whatever anatomy you're using. It just gives you more room to play with your imagination and your creativity that live action allows you, even if the live action project is funny.
Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely gives you that bandwidth to really explore a character and explore a whole story, being able to push it and pull it however you want. Um, versus live action. If you're thinking that way, then you probably be thinking, okay, I wanted to do this, but it's going to be CG or visual effects that's going to have to be
Yeah,
added to this to get that exaggeration. Whereas you're not limited, to thinking kind of necessarily thinking like that or having the budget to do that with animation. Um, I'm kind of curious, and I don't know if you're maybe feeling the effects as much over there in Kenya, but obviously the industry's kind of going through, at least over here, the industry's kind of going through its little period. You're getting a lot of people getting let go from studios, the industry is just kind of taking we're at kind of a lull there. Is that something that, you're necessarily feeling as much over here? I'm pretty sure just being in the community, you've read this studio's, laying off this many, employees, you know, movie bomb, just how the industry is. Artists are getting, VFX artists are getting burned out. I'm don't know if you're hearing the same type of, you know, feeling or feeling the same type of feeling that artists over here are feeling as far as, just the industry.
well, yeah, I think it's a global thing. It's just we live in the age of AI. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say anything without mentioning AI
And I was
in
going to
that
dive
statement.
in, and
But
that was definitely a topic we were going to dive into AI. So might as well
yeah,
just go ahead and transition into it as well because you can't.
absolutely, because I mean, people get laid off mostly because of the introduction of AI into the whole thing, and so we it's happening around here in two folds. I mean, people losing their jobs because of lack of funding in the industry. That's one, but also because of the introduction of AI into what most people are doing now. So let me start with the first one. It's been one of the biggest challenges from day one. No funding or almost no funding for the animation industry around here. So lack of funds for people to do the project is making studios not able to continue keeping people in house. So a lot of studios are transitioning into a project-based model where we they just hire people based on the project they
Yeah.
have. So I have a project I'm making. I'm making a series of about 10 episodes, 15 minutes running time per episode. I'm going to hire people to work on this project, and everybody can go back home when they're done. Now, the project is going to last about 6 months. Okay, everybody come into the studio. 6 months, you're done. Everybody goes home. So nobody stays in house because you don't have the funding to keep everyone
Yeah.
in the studio paying them regardless of when the projects are on or when they're not. So that's the first major reason why people are getting laid off their jobs. The studios are not able to keep everyone because we don't have so much funding coming in. It takes a whole lot to get a 25 to $50,000 project coming in. I mean, if you have a studio that you have to run every single day with a lot of artists, different departments, if you're not able to get all these jobs coming consistently, you're not going to be able to operate in the standard that you see other studios in the States or elsewhere
Yeah.
do. And secondly, the coming of AI just sort of make things worse. It's not supposed to be like that. I'm actually of the opinion that I understand what AI is doing. I understand people losing their jobs and everything, but it does not have to be that way, right? It does not have to be that way. Now, you look at character artists, background artists, illustrators losing their jobs because somebody can just go prompt and get what they're looking for. But I've always said that you cannot replace the emotion
Yeah.
and the soul that comes into something a human being creates. I mean, the machine does not exist on its own. Every single prompt that you put it in there to generate everything was put in there by someone.
Yeah.
So if this someone does not feed this software that you're working with, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to operate. It's not even going to exist that way. So I keep telling people this. I've seen a lot of people lose their job, including screenwriters, because somebody told me something. They said, well, you want to also save MI because someday you'll be out of job. Um, People have softwares now; they can just go prompt and write a script to them. I just laugh at it. I sit down. Come on, man, this is just nonsense. You cannot replace a software can write you a script, but it cannot tell you a story. There's a difference between writing and storytelling. Everybody can be a writer. Absolutely everyone. Give me anybody you think the worst candidate that you think I can put that person through the process of being able to write a screenplay. It takes absolutely nothing. Just a few days of dedication and you can know how to write. Because writing is about formatting, is about processing, is about understanding, oh, this is a character, this is what the thing. But what is the content? What is the soul of that thing that you are writing? Is only a properly trained or an experienced storyteller that can give you that. And
Yeah.
how do you, no software in the world, no AI in the world can have that much emotion and human experience to write you something that would replace what
Yeah.
another human would do. I mean, it's absolutely not going to happen. So, yeah, it's a thing around here. I mean, people are getting laid off, but I've always said that if we understand what this AI phenomenon is, we can actually leverage it to our advantage. Because I keep saying that AI should be a tool for you to use. It's not supposed to replace you. How in the devil do you think something like that can replace you? It's not happening. It's
Oh
not supposed to
man.
happen. If it replaces you, anybody who is afraid of being replaced by the thing just doesn't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't
You got
understand.
those ones, like I said, that are afraid of that. I think there's a lot of, and I totally agree. It's just a tool. Like, a computer is a tool. Like everything's a tool, and it's used to aid what you do. Um, I think you got that portion that, like you said, is just afraid it's going to replace them. Then you got a portion that they understand it's a tool, but they just don't like kind of the way that it's of them not getting compensated a lot for their work, where the tool is
I don't
learning,
like it as well.
where they're
I
learning
don't like
from
it.
their style, their work, they're pulling, um, you know, they're in essence they're pulling their livelihood or taking some of their livelihood without their permission or without the artist getting compensated for it. And I have I've seen some, heard some really interesting stories of people that, have tried to use AI and just kind of segue like what, or kind of sidestep kind of what you were just talking about, the the actual skill and the knowledge of what it is you're doing. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories of people that, hey, they just put in the prompt of an idea into Chat GPE and it spit and say, hey, give me a script for this. And it'll spit out, what it thinks is a script. But again, like you said, it doesn't have the heart and soul of just the characters, the depth of the story that a true writer can understand. Just like, yeah, AI can spit you out graphic, artwork, but unless you understand true design, true composition, and all the principles that underlie that thing that you're getting out, it's never going to have that true essence. And again, my thought is, yeah, it's a great tool. I don't think it's never going to take the place of the human emotion or the emotions that humans can bring. So it's interesting that you say that. And everybody, I always like the conversation because, like I said, it is the big elephant in the room. So for all you viewers out there that have your own opinion about it, please throw it in the comments for sure, because I'm always, like I said, I've met so many people on one side or the other, that either love it, they hate it, they don't want to learn it, they don't want to see, and my thing is, like I said, it's a tool. Just like Photoshop, like my computer, like this camera, like everything I use, it's a tool. So how can I leverage this tool to be more creative in what I do is the thing. And that's how I try and look at AI. How can I leverage AI and use AI to enhance what I'm already doing creatively, or to make certain menial tasks, off my plate, or just automate or shorten, which is what it's supposed to do. But it's interesting, like you were saying, it's touched everything, and it's kind of that genie that's not going back in the bottle. You're not going to be able to get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
No, you're not. You're not. You might as well just accept it. Like, it's here.
Accept
It's
it
gonna be here
and
long
learn.
after we got. Yeah. But I
Accept
do,
it.
I do get the part that you were, I do get the part that you mentioned earlier about and I do understand, I do really 100% understand when artists get offended, because of how these things take so much of their creativity and they're not getting compensated for that. They're not. I mean, it's really wild if you see what people are able to do with AI, with people's ideas, without getting acknowledged. You will get pretty pissed off and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
some of my colleagues who are, I know this is really touchy subject for a lot of people, but I have seen people very close to me who have experienced this being circumvented. They just run over them, just take their ideas. I mean, there's no form of acknowledgement. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know any of the legal implications of all of these things, but I just know that it's simply not right for artists to get sidelined and to get cheated in a way.
Yeah.
Um, for lack of a better word, I think they're just being cheated out of the creativity,
Yeah.
and nobody should have to experience that.
Yeah. And I think that's another part of the problem with AI as it is right now. They still haven't worked out they're still working out the legalities and copyrights and just the rights of artists and things like that. So it's almost like the Wild West, where people are just using it and shooting and seeing what they can, the money they can make or this or that, until they start to put in laws and restrictions and really enforce those laws and restrictions, that it's going to start kind of reining itself in there. But on the flip side, I have seen a lot of creators and artists use AI to really create some amazing things. They're already a creator. So, I mean, like I said, they're using it as a tool to help them, aid them in whatever it is that they're creating, and see how AI as a tool can help them. Just like it's that same kind of transition between 2D and 3D animation. Before 3D animation came along, everything was done 2D. And then 3D came along, and it's like, okay, like John Lasseter thought, wow, it doesn't take the place of 2D, but this is a new tool to help me create animation, which I love. So how can I use this new tool of 3D to tell animated stories that I love? Even though he,
Yeah, I mean,
do the principles of traditional 2D animation.
yeah, it's always been this. We've always had this innovations over time. It's just understanding the times and rolling with that. I mean, when 2D started, it was on, cell animation. It was on paper. You have to draw it on paper, then scan it and everything. But when Photoshop came, Adobe came. It was pretty the same thing, but in a much convenient manner.
Yeah,
You're still doing the drawing, but
yeah,
you're not doing it in that exact manner. So I mean, AI has always been there. It's
yeah,
always been there. It's
yeah.
just understanding it and making use of it. I mean,
Well,
like you said, it does not replace. It really does not replace
no,
the artists that you see making great stuff is because they know what they want to create, and so they are able to create it. If you don't know what you're supposed to do, it can't help you. You need
yeah,
to know exactly what it is you want to do. It's supposed to be a tool, like you said, to aid your creativity, not to substitute your creativity. Someone with absolutely no understanding of art cannot produce a masterpiece with
no,
AI.
no,
It's just not possible.
no. And and I think if people thought about it, maybe I don't know, and I may be wrong. Maybe I think of it in a simplistic manner, but to me, that's just the nature of technology and progressing from one technology to the other. Because I'm pretty sure people, when we were riding back on horse and buggy, when the train and the car came along, were thinking, "What is this? What kind of technology is this?" And
Exactly.
so that's just that awkward step from one old technology to something new, and then like I said, getting used to this something new and figuring out, okay, well, how do we expand, or how does this aid us in getting from point A to point B in a much more efficient and faster way? So that's how I look at it. It's just like I said, this awkward step from old to new technology. And you can see that in everything, like I said, from horse and buggy to phone to airplanes. I'm pretty sure if we had an airplane back in 17, if we had a jetliner and people in early 1700s, 1800s saw a jetliner, they would think this is crazy. The thought
Now
of,
they're gonna say what manner of witchcraft is this?
yeah, they're going
That's
to
what
think.
they will say.
And trust me, there have been people like that. Like I said, when Native Americans would see planes that hadn't at to that point saw planes, they would think it was a metal bird in the sky or something like that. It's just the nature of not understanding the new technology that you're seeing and then getting used to it
Yeah,
and figuring out, okay, this is just something different. And like now it's just second nature. People don't,
yeah.
I don't think too many people would ride a horse from cross country from one
Yeah,
side of the.
absolutely not. When you got an airplane, you're not doing that.
So that's just my simple way of looking at AI, and being open to embracing it. It's just a natural thing because, like I said, trust me, I'm old enough to know the time before Google, the time before computers, the time before cell phones, and all of that. I'm old enough to understand that. I didn't grow up in that sense. Now, like I said, that's something a person being born, a Gen Xer
Yeah,
or a Gen Y or a Gen Zer is just they can't think of any other time because they're born in this time where the technology is here. But there'll be something that's created in this time that future generation is going to think is obsolete, or it's just you know that's just the
yeah,
nature of, like I said, progression in technology. So I always find it funny. Like I said, like some people just don't want. But on the flip side, I always say, as a tool, there are always going to be people that use a tool the wrong way. Like a
Like
car
everything
is,
else. Like
yeah, like
everything
a
else.
car is a tool, but there are people that can kill people with a car. A gun is a tool, but obviously there are going to be people that use a gun the wrong way. It's just the nature, that's just human nature. There's always going to be people that use a tool not as it was intended to be
Yeah.
made, you know, so crazy. Everybody just jumping in. We're having we're having a great conversation right now. We're kind of talking about AI and the impact on it, but like I said, you're starting to see some interesting blends just in the styles of animations that are coming out. What have you seen in regards to storytelling? Uh, just you know, what's been kind of amazing or surprising to you? Like I said, not just with Kizazi Moto and Iwaju, but you're starting to see, you know, Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, the stylized kind of animation, and just you know, all the anime that's coming out. You know, anime has always been kind of cutting edge, I think, because that's just the
Yeah.
just seems like the nature of it. But you as a writer, you know, what are your thoughts of the things that you're starting to see come out and get into the spotlight?
Oh man, I've always wanted to say this. No, so when you look at it, even storytelling has evolved. It has evolved. We storytelling is becoming a pretty serious business. Now, even the comic title, writing is now, it's just awesome. I will just give you an example with two things that I saw on screen. One, how much storytelling has evolved. When you look at feature films like Soul, the one featuring Jamie Foxx. It was an absolute. I mean, so for a long time, people just tell stories from what they can see, but now storytelling is evolving to what do you think happens in a place where you don't see it? What happens outside of your own understanding? What happens beyond your own sphere of influence, beyond your own area of focus? What do you think happens? Do you think this is the only place that exists? Do you really think that, I mean, so storytelling is not becoming um, um, so evolved that we're answering questions that is really important to humanity. Where are we from? Where are we going to? Where did we start? It's just not no longer about feel good stories. I mean, great stories, great spectacles. I mean, people jumping. I mean, Spider-Man is awesome. It's great. But
Yeah,
films like that, they entertain you. They just entertain you, which is what we've always known stories to be part of a larger thing about entertainment. But storytelling in animation, because I can beat my chest to say animation is doing more of that than live action is doing. Animation is telling us a lot deeper stories
yeah,
about humanity, about who we are, what we need to do. I mean, storytelling is becoming suggestive, suggesting to you how you can live life, suggesting to you how you can interact with the next person, suggesting to you how you should respond to something, suggesting to you how you can just internalize and experience certain things. So look at Soul. A lot of people just never had an idea of what do you think went on before you became who you are and started this journey to come into this place? A lot of people are saying, okay, this is the afterlife, but what about the before life? Because you don't honestly think if you are a human soul that should exist or exist forever. I mean,
yeah,
this transcends any kind of religion or religious belief. This is just spirituality. I mean, if you believe this is the afterlife and this is the life right now, what happened in the before life? I
yeah,
mean, before Soul came on screen, we never saw anything like that. So I mean, even storytelling is no longer just becoming, oh, this is my character, this is my setting, these are the things that I like to discuss about. I just go on screen and just have feel good. I don't want to call names. I don't want anyone else to me. So I'm not giving examples calling names, but I mean a whole lot of films have been just on the surface, you understand. Everybody feels good. Let's enjoy the spectacle and everybody goes home. But now animated films are changing the conversation. stories and animation are becoming a lot different. Now, like I said, even comedy is becoming really instructive now. You look at I always say that Boondocks was beyond
Yeah.
a TV
Boondocks
show.
was ahead of his
It
time.
was, yeah, way ahead of its time. It was I said my colleague in the studio said Boondocks is a love letter to every black person on earth. I mean, this is now Magruder is saying, I understand this. I also understand that, but I don't think this should be done in this particular whatever aspect of it you think this is. He's making a really serious critic of the black culture, of black people, interaction in the world, what we're meant to do, what we are doing differently, and why it shouldn't be done like that. So it's not just storytelling for feeling good, just a storytelling for entertainment. Storytelling has evolved from just being feel good to being instructive being super educated and even setting an agenda for conversation in our society, which was what I saw with Good Times, the
Yeah.
animated version. When Good Times came out, I know a lot of people, critic him, but they just talking from nostalgia, just from their love and attachment for the live action version. But I said, look, this is animation. It's going to reach a lot more people than the live action did. I mean, live action was in the 80s what about the new generation? What do you have to show them? Can you speak to them in the language that they understand and they enjoy? Because a lot of people enjoy animation. So what Good Times did was to build on what Boondocks did in the past
Yeah.
and just pick on the thoughts and move on and make a whole X-ray of our society from the perspective that we are familiar with. So, like I said, not just it's not just the art, it's not just great animation like we saw in Across the Spider-Verse, in all these animated films, even the stories are becoming different. They are
Yeah.
becoming much more than ordinary stories. You go see an animated film and you go back home thinking, and you're like, it's a cartoon. I'm not supposed to think too much about this. It's supposed to be light. But then it's giving you a lot of instructions, making you question a lot of things, making you think and unthink a lot of things, and just basically see life in a different perspective. So even storytelling is just metamorphosing into something much more potent than we ever thought it could be.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's interesting, just all of that you said because while I didn't see, I didn't see the animated version of Good Times, although it didn't. Like I said, I grew up on the TV show Good Times, so I get it. In hindsight, it was a great show. I love Good Times, the show, the live show, because again, I saw characters that looked like me. I saw situations that I could understand and wrap my head around. Now we can get into, uh, you know, the talk of it. I think the message of it drifted considerably over the span of the show. That's a whole different conversation when James left the show and stuff like that. Now the difference, between the characters, the animated version versus the live action, I can't really speak in depth on because I never watched the animated version. But I did hear that they kind of went left field with just the characters. It weren't even the same characters. But I also get, okay, this is, I guess, a totally different audience they're trying to speak to. Um, I just wish, like I said, if that's the case, just make a clean slate of an animated show as opposed to tying it to something that had meaning,
Yeah, I
and going
agree with
off of
that.
something that had
Absolutely.
meaning, then, unless you're going to kind of stick with the arc of what the actual
Right,
live action
right.
show meant, what the characters represented in that, unless you're going to stay along that vein, okay. But if you're going to diverge, then don't connect it to something that just it doesn't really. And from what I heard, none of the characters were actually the same, and it just kind of just for me, I probably wouldn't have liked it, you know, had I watched it, only because I know what the live action version was. Now, true, as I as I gotten older, I can realize it's stereotypical. And I understood that it was a white person that was producing it, so he was coming from his perspective. I understand that. But again, like I said, I could see the situations that were going on, obviously, um, because they look like me and they look like characters and people I knew in my own neighborhood from different people. But again, like I said, I think it took a totally different arc, um, which, from my understanding, that's why some of the characters left because the writers were wanting it to go down a different direction. But again, like I said, that's a whole conversation in and of itself. But I agree with you in the sense that animations can have you walking away thinking something much deeper than what you're watching on there. And I don't know about you, and I don't know if it was something that was shown over there, but I grew up like Saturday morning cartoons, and one of the ones, and it wasn't even a full cartoon, it was a short that was played in between cartoons, and it was called School of Rock. And what it did was it taught you in a limerical, animated way just different things, whether it was math, whether it was how the law worked or Congress worked. So it was that was for the first time I understood the power of what animation and could do in helping you educate you on things deeper than what you're sitting there thinking you're watching. You think you're watching just a cartoon, but
Yeah,
you're getting something much deeper. And to show that it solidifies, you can recite, at least I can. I'm pretty sure a lot of people over here can pretty much recite one of those School of Rock songs because it was just such a catchy thing. And remember, you know, the topic it was talking about, whether they were explaining what a verb is, and they put it to music. That's the power of what you can learn and educate, people on and really transform them on a deeper level. That's the power of story, a good story, and that's the power of great animation. It can take you on such more deeper level, albeit still entertaining and something that people can kind of grasp onto.
yeah,
Yeah, which was why I loved and still love watching anime. One, it's beautifully done. Their animation is so
yeah,
beautifully done. But two, they have such deep concepts that you have to watch it a couple of times to really understand the nuances, of what they're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, two animations that I'll always two anime films that I'll always go back to when we're talking about how deep animated content can get in giving instructions. Grave of the Fireflies. Miyazaki's film. I mean, there's just no. I've seen it a few times. I've seen it a couple of times, and every single time I've seen it, I've always, I've always gone away sober, really, really sober. I mean, looking at this thing, I don't think I would have thought that way seeing it in a live action environment. I probably wouldn't see it with all the bombs because it was a World War II story,
Yeah,
but it was from a very human angle story. It's just a story of two siblings, one taking care of the other. At the end of the day, one of them dies and all of that. So anyone who's been through any kind of conflict just sort of connected with that. And it was a really heart wrenching story, especially the way they presented it. So the anime culture of telling stories with deep roots and deep meanings, it's just something only animation will do for you. I mean, it's just wonderful. I see some of the films, I just go in my room and I just sit quietly, just start reflecting. Have I been taking this thing for granted? What do I need to do? I think this is a timely reminder to this. It's just no anime. It's a good place, and it's been a very wonderful place for us to learn, especially for me as a writer to learn how to put stories and give them much deeper meaning than
yeah.
I probably would have.
Well, let me ask you, how do you? And I don't want you to kind of generalize it. This is, your answer is your opinion, but just general. How do you look at animations from the outside that are trying to represent or tell a story from your perspective when you see an animation. So say like, which Bernard, if you're watching this, or Demille, if you're watching this, I know you say this is always the question, and this is a question that he's always interested in. Like when you see movies like Black Panther or Lion King that they have a story, but they're based, from kind of an African perspective. When you watch it, I'm pretty sure maybe you're watching it on a one story level, entertainment level, but from just, you know, when you receive or see stuff that's, like I said, kind of trying to represent from your perspective in your daily life or your culture, what's your thought about what you see, and what others like from that continent see or say when they see like other people trying to give their representation of an accent, or which I hear a lot. It's like that's the language and the accents are always the big thing I hear from a lot of my African brothers and sisters. But from you, with you,
Uh,
what are some of the things that you kind of think about when you sit and you watch those kind of movies and animations?
well, I tell you, the first thing is about 80% of the time, just don't worry about the accuracy of my statistics, but about 80% of the time, it's just it's plain annoying. It's just downright annoying. Then about 10% of the time, it's just plain amusing. I mean, I just laugh at how silly it is. And then it's just a few times that I said, okay, you're very close to it. But I cannot tell you there's one television show, there's one character, there's one animated piece um, that it's meant to represent Africa or story set in Africa that has been done close to any form of accuracy. It's just been people's perspective of what Africa is, and it's just in their head. That is not Africa. That is not the way Africans talk. That's not the way Africans behave because there's not one Africa. You need to understand. So if when you see something like, definitely I'm going to use Black Panther as an example. I mean, I'm like, okay, where the hell is this Wakanda? I mean, where are these people? Like, trust me, when I see things like that. I mean, when they start to talk with the whole Wakanda thing, uh, I'm gonna do my bit of Wakanda impression now. Is that Kinzinga? What are you doing? You know things like that. I was like, this is what part of Africa are you trying to represent here? And now let me give you an example with something that you and I can relate with.
Yeah,
That everyone likes to say is very African, which is the Lion King. There's absolutely nothing African
African.
about the show other than the names of the characters, Mufasa,
Yeah,
whatever. I don't I've never heard the name of anything or anyone called Simba to begin with. So not all of the names are very African, but the story itself can take place in Central Park, New York.
yeah,
It could be anywhere. It's an American story. It's very very American in its makeup and its presentation. That is really not. It's one of the reasons why people like me and why Magic Carpet as a studio agent, we want to tell African stories from African perspective.
yeah,
There is a way we tell our stories. They're not as templated as Hollywood stories. Now, this is I'm not trying to offend anybody
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anybody watching me. Or not. I'm just trying to be super expressive and honest here.
Honest.
It,
Yeah,
it's it's not done properly because there's just a whole lot of Africa that people don't understand. You can't tell a story of people that you don't understand. Because if you have a limited understanding of them sitting in your chair and somewhere in a cozy room in an apartment in London, writing about a civilization from Kenya, you're not going to get it.
yeah,
You're not going to get it unless you interact with that culture. You're not going to get it. And let me tell you something. Why I always say this, and I know I'm 100% correct in this. When I'm writing a story here, we're working on a project called Legends of Mulan. It's an animated series. Now, Legends of Mulan is we're going back to that time before our continent was called Africa,
Yeah.
because the name Africa was given. It's just a name to understand this vast land. Let's call it Africa. Like before it was called Africa, when it was just kingdoms and empires, what was
Yeah.
it known? So, a lot of literatures out there say it was called Al Kebulan, which is what we call as the land of Africa now. But even before it was called Al Kebulan, there were systems of governance, there were trade routes, there were people, there were empires, there were kingdoms, there were princes, there were people, there were institutions, there were schools, there was a civilization within that place. So if I was going to write a series like that, it's an entire African thing. I'm in Nigeria. I cannot write an Ashanti story. I have to meet up with someone from the Ashanti
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
and say, hey, you're from Ghana. You're from Ghana. What do we do here? Now, I can write you a story, but it's not going to be an
Yeah.
accurate representation. I
Yeah.
don't have to be as accurate as I can because, of course, we're going to get creative liberties and everything to tell a story that people will enjoy. But if I am going to give a respectful, which is why I said I just said respectful representation of someone's culture, I
Yeah.
have to work with them. I have to leave that culture. I have to experience it. So even as an African, even as a Nigerian, if I'm writing a project like the one we did, the Passport of Mallam Ilia, it's set in the northern part of the country.
Yeah.
Magic Carpet as a studio, and most of the people I work with in Magic Carpet studios, they are in the southern part of the country. So even within Nigeria, they don't fully understand the culture they're trying to work in. So what do? We transplant ourselves into that culture, spend months with the people, talk to them, read the literature, eat the kind of food they eat,
Yeah.
try doing an immersive research into that culture. So you can see how vast this thing is. Even within Nigeria, one
Yeah.
person cannot tell you this is a Nigerian thing. Okay, what part of Nigeria? So when
Yeah.
you start doing this whole Africa thing, and you're telling me that Wakanda it's a representation of Africa. It's someone from South Africa, southern part of Africa, doesn't relate to that, doesn't understand all of the things. Somebody from Central Africa is just, scratching their head. I'm like, okay, what is this? What am I seeing? What do I understand this? This is not the way our kings interact with each other. This is not the way our people. It's not just putting a spectacle on screen that people love. It's about respectful representation of such people. So a vast majority of the films that I've seen coming from those places are not respectful in doing justice to the cultures or people or history they're trying to represent. They're not telling the stories for us here in Africa. They
Mm.
are painting a particular picture of Africa for an outside of Africa audience. It's not even for us. Because if it's for us, you're not doing it well. If
Yeah.
it's for us, you need to show this, you need to do this, you need to pay attention to this. But they're doing it to people who it's just confirmation
Yeah.
bias. This is what they understand the continent to be like. And no, we need to show them that it has never been about educating people about, okay, this is what you think you know, but this is what it is because we've seen what it is on ground and we're not giving you the accurate information. But like I said, Lion King was not meant for us here. I don't think Wakanda was meant for us.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think Woman King. I don't think any of the films were meant for us. If we're going to do a film, to the
Yeah.
rest of the world, it has to be done by us
Yeah.
here, which is what Magic Carpet is doing, basically.
And that's such a great point for sure. And I don't think a lot of people um, kind of get, especially from outside, because like I said, we're just getting this kind of idolized version of what we think Africa is, or this part of Africa, and what I've learned just from my African brothers and sisters that I made friends with, Africa is so diverse and so big. There's thousands and thousands of languages within within Africa, and dialects within Africa. And granted, Wakanda is a fictional place. I think, you know, from what I've seen at some of his interviews before he passed, Chadwick kind of tried to mesh a few different styles or dialects together. Obviously, he's not going to get everybody's dialect. It was just kind of his thing of okay, what kind of dialect can I do? But I think we have a generalized. I like to say we have a generalized idea of what we think an African dialect sounds like. Kind of the typical South African dialect. Mandela speak, and even he spoke a deeper language than what we thought. But just the accent
yeah,
of what an African what we think an African dialect is like. I think that's kind of what how we kind of create stuff. But to that point, though, do you feel? And before I go on, hey, Miss Maggie, appreciate you tuning in. Vegas was good. The event was good. I think I'm going to do a recap on the film festival and the whole experience. But it was great. I'll talk to you about that for sure. But do you feel like it's gonna that authenticity, whether it's African, whether it's Latino, whether it's Asian, is going to come from those independent creators and those small studios that are really that actually are there. That's from those countries and continents that are going to tell those deeper stories and more authentic stories as opposed to the big studios that are trying to make something commercialized you know
yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna answer this question. The big studios they're not going to be down with it at the beginning. Because the big studios, it's all about business. It's just about um, they think commercials first. If we put this in school, is it gonna sell? Yes. So I'm not even worried about the response of the big studios. I just wanted to start from somewhere. It starts with small studios, independent creators. If this independent creators and the small production companies begin to tell the stories that way, and the acceptance is is gotten. If the big studios are able to see that, okay, um, we can still tell the stories in as authentic as they can be and still have commercial value to them. Okay, we'll bring it up, but unless we prove to them that we can tell our stories with a lot of authenticity and still retain all the values that the commercial guys are looking at, they're
yeah
not going to buy it. You
yeah
understand? So it starts with small creators. It starts with the guy making comics in his room. It starts with the guy doing concept design for
yeah
studios like Magic Carpet or any other studios. You just have to do it in a certain way and put in everything that you got into that. So when it goes out there, the audience are not as simple as we think they are. You understand? People who constitute members of our audience do know a great thing when they see it. So when they do see the thing, it's vastly different from what they've been fed all these years, but they are going to come into it eventually. So we just need to be consistent in putting the right stuff that we've always cried about. So okay, we don't like this thing. What are you doing about it? Okay, I'm going to substitute this thing that they're used to seeing with the authentic thing. It's going to take me a lot of time for somebody to accept it, but it's going to work eventually. So we keep putting it out there. They will see it, and when these guys measure the um the um the commercial value of it and see that it's the same or even way greater than what we have, you're going to buy into it. And someday you're going to wake up and see the big studios adapting these things, and then boom, we have it.
yeah well along that vein, what do you see as the biggest obstacle or challenge that Africa as a continent is going to have to overcome for the industry to be taken seriously outside of the continent? Because obviously there's in just in the conversations, and I know this isn't everywhere in Africa, but just in some of the conversations that I've had with some of my African brothers and sisters, you don't have that issue, or we don't have that issue of thinking about, okay, our power is going to go out at any minute. We just expect when we flip the switch, we got a power. We got access to schools and institutions that teach animation as opposed to having to do it online or having to go out of the country to France or England or somewhere else um, over in Africa. Those are things that we don't necessarily think about over here. Like I said, we got a lot of our government, we got a lot of programs that kind of support and aid in the industry. We obviously see the financial validity of the industry of animation. Not everybody is into animation, but we know that's $1 billion business. We understand that animation because we've been, like I said, we've had Disney for over 50 years. We've had that kind of exposure to it. What do you see as some of the overarching challenges that Africa as a continent, just in the infrastructure of that industry, to where you are self-sustaining. You're putting out. You have big studios like Disney that are putting out animations to other parts of the world. What do you see as some of the bigger challenges that Africa as a continent is going to have to kind of still overcome for the industry to be like it is over here?
Well, you know the pretty obvious ones. Cut across everything, not just our industry. The infrastructure, um, inadequacies, power, just having the space. We have vast expensive lands, but they're not developed. So I
Yeah,
mean, we have general infrastructure problems cut across everything, not just animation. So it affects us like every other ones. But nailing down to specific things that have to do with us, it's in twofold. I mean, the first is the external thing, and then internally, even in the industry, for us to be taken serious. Now I'm going to start with assuming I'm going to start with the second part,
yeah,
obviously. Now, assuming we have animation schools, we have government funding, we have supported policies by the government, we have these infrastructures. We're still going to have one problem, which is what I'm majorly concerned about. We don't have an industry. We don't have an organized, because when you talk about an industry, it's about structure, it's about organization, it's
yeah,
about associations, guilds. It's about a
yeah,
very cohesive system that works. So we don't have that. It's just a bunch of studios here and there, um, just doing their thing. There's
yeah,
no central system that keeps everyone together. Um, we don't have a harmonized system where like when the WGA went on strike in the
yeah.
States, it affected everyone. You understand? It affected everyone writing, but we didn't have something like that. I mean,
Mm,
I could say, oh, I have an association for screenwriters, or we're going on strike. It's not binding because we don't have that kind of organization. We don't have that kind of system in place. So even if we overcome the infrastructure challenges, which is largely on the government part, and then the coming of the private sector to invest in all of this, we're still going to have to deal with the issue of organization. For us to have a proper industry, we need to have the structure, having the guilds, having the associations for the directors and all of that, having some kind of cohesion. There's not just everyone working individually. So we just have to come together as a system. That's not happening. We don't have it right now. I can tell you that for a fact. We don't have that now. Now, looking at the other part, when I mentioned having policies, is that one of the reasons why we struggle to have co-production projects with studios outside of Nigeria,
mhm.
um, not necessarily outside of the continent. I'm speaking specifically for the Nigerian animation
Yeah,
industry now. It could be with a South African studio. It could be with Triggerfish, right? But because we don't have a co-production treaty between the two countries. The two governments don't have a co-production treaty. Um, the tax incentives are not even there.
yeah,
So I mean, a big American studio wants to work on a project with us. They're looking at their tax back. They're looking at what what um what um what they can get from the government, but
Yeah,
there
what
exists
incentives
no
are you giving me?
co-production. Yes, no tax incentives. There exists no co-production treaty between the two countries, so we're not able to do. We got into a conversation. I got into a conversation once with a studio in Pakistan in Karachi. Wonderful animation guys. It's doing great. So we escalated the conversation to a studio level. And okay, this is what we want to do. But then the check. If we come into Nigeria with our money, we're not going to get anything back because there's no tax incentive, because
Yeah,
there exists no co-production treaty. So even if we overcome the infrastructure problems, we're organizing as an industry. We don't have these policies in place to help us. There are no co-production deals between us and other countries, and that's a major challenge. We could have scored a lot of projects, a lot of co-production projects if these things are in place, which we're doing something in that effect, right?
yeah,
We've sent a lot of documents, talking to the guys in government. Can you do this? Can you do that? With a lot of countries to have projects that we can potentially work on. But we're doing all of that, but right now it is not exist, and it's a major problem.
yeah. And I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I'm not a political person or anything like that. But do you think it's partly because, like I said, Africa is a big continent that has a lot of countries within that continent that are all individually kind of ruled and run. And like I said, you don't have this kind of cohesiveness of, like, say over here, we have, 51 states or 50 states. I don't know if I'm, however many states, but we still all come up under the president in this governmental agency, this kind of one governmental agency. Is, do you think that's what's going to be the hindrance of Africa, you know, kind of coming under this agency that you all collectively agree on, that's going to govern the industry or regulate the industry or incentivize the industry for all? Do you think that's kind of the thing that's kind of the holding you back from, all having an agency that regulates the writers guild over there or regulates, the animators guild or the VFX guild, that, that type of thing?
Yeah, um, well, unlike in a political sense, because we have the African Union, right? We
Okay.
have the entire African continent under one umbrella, just like you have the EU, the European Union, using one currency and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But it probably would not. I'm not exactly confident that that's going to work. Even if it's going to work, I don't necessarily think it's the right way to go about it. For us to have one regulatory body for African animation, it might not really work because it's just too big. So what I do know can work is having it by region. Now, like the East African film market, is basically headquartered in Kenya. Kenya is driving the East African market, and they have this very close relationship. Now, this thing I'm telling you, one of the challenges we have in animation in Nigeria, the guys in Kenya don't have it, even though we have a much bigger space. We have more players in the game than they do. But the Kenyan studios have co-production deals with the Canadian market. They have it
Yeah.
with even the US market. They have it
Yeah.
with a lot of studios. So they don't have these problems that we have. And what they're doing now is they're taking care of the policy issues. They're trying to fix the infrastructure problems which everybody has. Now, the reason why I honestly do not think it's going to work for the entire Africa is because the whole of North Africa is it's majorly Arab country, and the animation the industry is it's in Arabic, and it's just too different from somebody in western part of Africa,
Yeah.
which you have French, you have English, you have other languages, and all of that. But what we can do is if we do it by region, within Africa. West Africa can actually have the regulatory agency just the way we have ECOWAS. we are united. The 16 states in ECOWAS have, or okay, now it's actually 12. They have 3 or 4 out of it. But I mean, ECOWAS has everything together. They have they can call for a standing army together. They do conferences together. They have an ECOWAS court. They can do a whole lot of things together. So I think we can have a West African animation a guild or body that can regulate everything. Now, even if we cannot have it by region, let's do it like every other country do. If every country in Africa that is big into animation can have a viable body that regulates and oversees all of these things, then I think we've solved half the problem to begin with.
Yeah.
South Africa has one. If you go to South Africa now, just recently, one of my colleagues came back from Dublin Film Festival, which we've been multiple times. You find out that the South African Film Commission is very viable. It works 100%. If you're making film in South Africa, you know you have the support of the government, you have the support of even private investors and all of that. So that's working for South Africa. They will not want to come into a larger umbrella where the other parts are not working. So I don't even think they would welcome that idea. But if Uganda, if Nigeria, if Senegal, if Cameroon, if Madagascar, if Egypt, if Ethiopia can have a very functioning film fund or a film commission
Commission.
and
Yeah.
and have yes, and have an arm that's specifically dedicated to animation, then I think we can figure it out. But unless we're able to do all of these things individually and then come together to merge it into a very giant, cohesive, functioning unit, we are not going to be taken care of out there. So, which is why we're suffering on multiple levels.
Yeah.
How people come here to put a premium on our services is different from how they do it. So, if someone comes to Nigeria to want to do a project that could cost them $20 million, you're not seeing half of that. But if he goes to an Indian studio because they have that regulated
Yeah.
functioning body, they're going to get all of that. So,
Yeah.
like you said, just direct answer to your question. We're not going to be taken serious unless we handle this problem that comes in threefold.
Well, I mean, and I know it's just a guess for you, but how long do you see, if at all, that happening? Do you see that happening, and then two, viably, if you had to guess, well, maybe 5 years, 10 years, we'll be at that point where, I think, you know, everybody will have their own commission that has equal power that works with each other. Do you see a timeline that happening or not happening at all?
Well, first of all, I do. I'm absolutely confident it's very possible. It's going to happen because it needs to happen. And one of the reasons why I feel confident is because we're actually doing something. Now, I wouldn't speak for other countries, but I do. We have friends. We have friends in other animation. We know each other.
Yeah,
Everyone in the animation field in Africa, we
knows
pretty
each
know each
other.
other. So I know the moves the guys in Uganda are making. I know the moves the guy in Tanzania are making. I know the moves the guys in Togo are making. We're keeping each other updated on all
Yeah,
the moves
on
and
what's
everything.
going on.
And yes, I know what we are doing in Nigeria because Magic Carpet is really championing that. Meeting with the policymakers, exchanging documents, always meeting with them. So it's moving a lot faster than 10 years time. It's
Mhm.
moving. Well, it might not. It will be probably a little bit exaggerated. It's like 5 years for sure, but
Yeah,
it's way less. It's definitely going to be less than 10 years.
yeah, and I think with creators like you know Raymond Malinga, with projects like Kizazi Moto and Iwaju and things like that starting to come out, I think it's showing African creators the power of what they can create and the quality of it, and just figuring out a way that we can make this a great industry collectively. and kind of get our stories out there. Um, as was mentioned in the bio, you love educating, and teaching. Is that what you're seeing in the message that you're kind of getting from the younger creators that you're talking to about the industry, uh, teaching about the industry, and their thoughts on how they see the industry moving forward?
Yeah, 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 100%. So, I got into the whole teaching thing just so I could make it possible for others to avoid the pitfalls that I had to deal with when I was coming up the ladder. You understand? So I just need them to understand that you don't have to go through the whole wilderness experience that I did, doing everything. You can just specialize in animation, just the way you love this medium. I mean, I've met some of these writers who say, I want to get into screenwriting, but I'm not really interested in writing for a live action film. But sometimes you tell them, just get through the foundation of screenwriting, which could apply to anything.
Yeah,
You understand? But then, because you're dedicated to this medium, hey, you're here, let's do it. This is what happened to me when I was doing it. These are some of the challenges that I have to deal with that I hope, these are some of the mistakes that I made that I hope you don't have to if you listen to me, to pay attention to this. And we do it in an organized form, which is I do personal tutoring for people who maybe much younger or people who cannot afford to go through the organized system. Because in Magic Carpet we have the Magic Lab Academy. It's more of
yeah,
a school where we teach everything in animation from 2D, 3D, character design, and all of that, VFX, and all of this. So we introduced the script writing for animation, and some of the guys who are coming to join the course, they're already script writers. They already script writers. They're writing live action films, TV shows. But they just want to make. Some of them even are doing games.
yeah.
They're writing
For
for games, and
games,
they say,
yeah,
okay,
cinematics
yeah,
and things.
some doing comics, and they say, okay,
Yeah,
I want to make the transition here. And those ones, I don't struggle with those ones. All I need to do is to introduce them to the medium of animation and make them understand the uniqueness of our own space. But
yeah,
then the ones who, so those ones are in the advanced path. But those ones that I have to bring up are, you know, majorly school, some as young as school going age, 14, 15, teenagers who say, okay, I love this. I enjoy the conversations, the dialogues in the series, and I want to be able to do something like that. I said,
yeah,
okay, come in and then we start from the foundation. So I love to do that because I think if I put in a lot of energy into doing that, some of the guys coming after me will not struggle with these very things that I struggle, and they will just pick the touch and move a lot faster than I did.
yeah, yeah. Well, and to that point, do you obviously, you know, I like to say it's such a great time for creators, um, really, and I can say that again because of the gray hairs. And I know before social media, before YouTube, before computers, it was just it was hard getting out. But now we have this access to so to the world pretty much, and we have all these channels that we can get our own content out. It's Do you see the playing field a little more level now as it comes to content creators controlling their own stories, their own ideas, and not feeling I like they have to get a job at a studio or something like that, or have to pitch their idea to a studio and hope they don't change it, or you know, you know, turn the story in a totally different direction or their idea in a totally different direction. Now that we have live in this time now where if you're you know, a filmmaker, there's YouTube. You can upload your films to YouTube and put a paywall if you want to start to try and earn money. If you're a photographer, there's Instagram. We have all these channels now where we can go directly to our fans and our
In the market,
audience.
yeah.
Do you feel like creators are starting to really grab onto that as opposed to feeling like, okay, I have to go to Disney or I have to go to Sony or Warner Brothers to back this? Now, granted, you have to have the dedication to put it all together. But you have places like Kickstarter, GoFundMe to generate revenue to, get your project out there. Do you feel like as you're talking and seeing younger people coming into it, whether they're a writer or whether they're an animator or whatever it is, taking more control of their own destiny, so to speak, and really leveraging this technology like AI, what we were talking about, and these channels, these social channels, and all of this? Do you see more, younger people like saying, "Hey, I got a story to tell. I got a movie to make. I got a script to write. I got a piece of artwork. I can just post it, and I can build my audience, and I can talk directly to my audience through my social channels." Do you see more younger artists really getting a fire and the realization that they have these tools at their hand?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I mean, that goes without saying. If I'm going to tie this into, um, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Um, so, so I'm going to tie this into the answer I'm giving you. So, when you look at the even the guys who come to learn from us, not every one of them is looking for an opportunity to work with the studio. Some of them said, "I need to understand how the market works. I need you guys to put me through everything, but I honestly want to have the the freedom to be able to create what I feel like creating, what I think is what. Because when you come through a studio setup, when you go through the entire traditional setup, there are checks and balances, um, the house style, house philosophies,
Yeah,
Disney does not produce every kind of story.
yeah,
It's something that tie into their core culture, you understand?
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same
yeah,
with Magic Company. Not every kind of story that we do. But independent, people are finding out that if I have to go through a traditional means, this story might never come out. But if I learn the skill in a traditional sense or in whatever sense, and I'm able to just do it, put it out there, since I have it now. But we're living in a great time, honestly, because you can. I have projects that I want to produce, but it can't go through the traditional pipeline
yeah,
because it just doesn't fit into the whole philosophy of the house. But I want to put it out there. Now, what do? I have the skill to do it. Why don't I just build a community and just reach out to my audience directly? So a lot of young people are realizing that the only way that they can keep the control 100%, not well, obviously not 100%, but a large control
yeah,
of their creativity and all of that is to get into co-production deals, which is why now you don't, at least around here, I don't know how it is in the States, but people don't do a lot of outright selling of their IP. What they do is just get into a deal and say,
yeah,
hey, let's co-produce this together because I want this to be this way. I want this to be this way. If they don't get that opportunity, they just opt for the direct creator to the market approach. Now it's a little slower to build a community on your own,
yeah,
but people are taking that chance. So a
yeah,
lot of young people are taking that.
yeah. And like I said, it you have to be a dedicated person of doing that, but it's more than
Yeah,
capable of you marketing, you selling, you reaping the benefits of your work and your sales, or at least the majority of it. Obviously, you'll have to pay a certain amount to get some things done or produced, but as far as controlling your idea, you control your idea and where it goes. But it does, like I said, require a lot of heavy lifting. I'm not knocking studios. They do a lot of work, as far as the marketing, getting the story out there, pulling the funds together. Yeah, they'll do it. And they got the reach. But
yeah,
obviously, now in the time that we live in, you can do that yourself. You can get the reach, you can get the funding, you can get the people, you can even get the people that work with you on your project. I know a lot of people, a lot of creators are working on their own projects, but they're bringing their friends on that they met at this studio or worked with here or went to school with. It's just you have to be the one that's going to manage all of that and control it, and you know, be able to, like I said, put the energy in getting your idea out. You know, but it's more than possible with all the mediums and the platform and the time that we live in now, which is why I say it's a great time for a creator. You know, because you got all these things that you know have access to that, trust me, when I was younger, didn't necessarily have access to. But that's just the nature of technology. Times change, things, you know, change, tools change, and you're able to get your idea out there. Man, Wayne, I'm so glad that you chimed in, because Wayne is
Yeah.
an amazing example, Carnegie. And brother, I got to get you back on the show. You know, he's working on his Starboy, and just loving what he's doing. But again, he didn't wait to get his story or try and take his story, and maybe he's, you know, putting a short together. Wayne, you could, you know, chime in on that, to pitch to a larger studio to develop it out more. You know, like I said, I think a lot of creators do that. They'll create their own little
Yeah.
short to pitch so that they can get bigger funding to go to these bigger studios that'll fund it and get it out to a wider audience that they don't have to necessarily spend time building or getting themselves. So nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But like I said, Wayne is great with, he's got a story. He did that with his children's book, Olivia. Was it Olivia and the, I want to, was it Olivia and the coconut tree? Wayne, you could clear that. But you know, it was just a story. But the point is, he has his stories, own ideas, but he's not waiting to get with a big studio or a big publisher to get it out there. He
Yeah.
just creates it. He's got all these channels, companies that'll print books for him. He can market it them and sell it himself on his website, or however promote it on his social channel. That's what I mean when we have all these avenues and outlets now to get our own idea out there and create our own idea. And my big thing is always telling, you don't have to wait. Yeah, if you want to work at Disney, you want to work at Pixar, that's your dream, fine. You know, but like I said, it's if you're the type that has a story burning inside them, or something, you know, idea that you want to put out, it takes a lot of energy just to even, and a little bit of luck for them, the studio, you're hoping the studio is going to put out your idea. And then if they do,
You.
9 times out of 10, there's going to be a lot of changes that you may not have thought about that they're going to want, because they're putting in commercially, they're changing it commercially to fit and make money. Whereas you
Yeah.
might just put it out just because you love the story and then you just want to get it out there, type of thing. So
Yeah.
there's
So,
compromises.
yeah. You're a lot more likely to get the attention of the big companies, the big studios, if you have your own thing going on. So I always advise people, you just don't wait for them to come to you. They're never going to come to you unless you have something going on. And so they can see the effort that you're doing. And it also gives you some form of leverage
Yeah,
when you have something going on. You tell them, okay, you're not going to compromise on an even wave that I'm also very comfortable with. I can go back after all. I'm actually not just a creative destitute. I got things going on for me as well. So I would just go back, and then you have something that you can work with.
yeah.
Um, so
I think, like I said, this time now, creators are seeing how much power they really hold when they, you know, take control of their own destiny. And like you said, studios, when they see that you got 2, 3 million followers and people following your content and buying your content and watching their content,
they
that
want to
gives you
talk.
such a
They want to
leg
have a
up.
conversation.
You just, if you didn't think so, ask Mr. Beast. Because they offered him a
Oh wow,
lot of
Mr.
money
Beast.
they offered him a ton of money to I don't know what company it was, but I know a company. It might have been Sony. It might have been. It was one of those big companies that offered him a lot of money to buy his business, but he didn't sell it. Why does he need to sell it? He's making millions off of and talking directly with his audience. So that's what I mean. When you tap into your audience directly, it gives you so much power that you never, really thought you could have. You know,
Absolutely.
everybody just jumping on. We're having an amazing conversation. You know how I like it. Comment into this because, like I said, we're having a great conversation about IP creation, AI, just this whole industry. The industry over in Africa, specifically Nigeria, and how it's growing and starting to really, you know, be worldwide known, and stories are starting to come out, and creators are starting to see the power in telling their own stories. For you, I mean, what are some of the other stories that you love to kind of explore in? Because even in the genre of animation, there's so many different roads you can go down: horror,
Yeah, absolutely.
comedy, children's, adult style animation. There's so many different, lanes that you can go down, even within this genre of animation. And I've met some amazing creators. Esther, uh, who does great. I think she's from Lagos. She does stop motion
Yeah, the
animation.
stop motion. Yeah,
Yeah, there's just so
excellent.
many, and it's just the thought of ideas and getting your stories and ideas that you want to get out. Are there particular stories that you enjoy writing, styles of stories, or well, styles, genres of stories that you enjoy writing more than others? We're seeing a lot of Afrofuturism. We're seeing more that kind of telling ancient stories in a futuristic style way, but we all know, I mean, stories are just emotions, and we all have these emotions and experiences. Are there different things that you would like to explore, that you find more easier for you to kind of slide into when you're writing, that type of thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, so first of all, I'm a huge history buff. I love history. I love going back in the past, which is basically what we did with adapting the Passport of Mallam Ilia. It's a story set in the story started from 1889. You understand? It started. The book was written in 1960. It was published in 1960 about a story that took place from 1889 to 1947. So
Yeah,
I mean, I love stories like that. I'm a huge history fan. I consume a lot more historical books than I do any other genre. So I love to do that kind of writing, and I like horror. Right, I like horror, but it's not something I have done in animation before. I have tons of scripts I've written for animation in the horror genre, but I've not started doing anything. Just a personal work, not yet in line with the vision of the studio
yeah,
and all of that. But then because I'm very observant, I pay attention to a lot of things. I don't like levels, so I wouldn't really call myself a social critic, but I pay attention to a lot of topical issues. So other than history, adventure, comedy, which is what we did with the sitcom Meet the Igwes.
yeah,
Meet the Igwes is basically your Nigerian version of Simpsons. It's a family thing. You
yeah,
understand? It's a family centered sitcom, um, heavily influenced by the life that we see around us, all of that. So, but other than doing some of those things, I do, yeah, aside from situational comedy, I do social commentary a lot. So keep horror apart, keep my comedy, keep history aside. Um, I don't do so much of Afrofuturism or any kind of futuristic thing. I'm not such a big fan of such a big fan of
yeah,
fantasy like that. I just like to deal with some of the things that I can
yeah,
relate and
yeah,
understand and question and with things like that. But so I find it a lot easier dealing with topical issues, current issues as it relates to what people talk about every day than I do with every other thing. But history is the easiest for me. Anything bank on historical ideas, figures, however you want to say it, I do it. However, what I've been doing of late is doing a lot of the subconscious. And I don't know how I sincerely hope nobody is taking this as an endorsement of anything, but I started delving into the subconscious thing when I told you when I sold soul. I saw soul and I loved it and I started thinking in that direction. Like what is happening inside someone's mind? Can I tell a story from a character's perspective from the inside? It could be in their inside spiritually, it could just be psychologically. I mean, I started dealing with subconscious, which is when I started writing stories that have different narrative techniques, flash forward, flash sideways, not just your traditional flashback. I do flash forward, flash sideways, and doing all of that, exploring different dimensions. What you see, what people call the multiverse or whatever. I, I started studying all of this. I said, okay, if I'm going to create an animated story of a character that is in this kind of setting, and I'm doing flash forward, but I'm also looking at the subconscious part of it or the supernatural side of it. How is it going to look like? I started doing this and I'm loving it. And
Yeah.
so this is one place I'm really paying attention to. And like I said, one thing leads to the other. After seeing so and all of that, start
Yeah.
reading books about that. Visited a hypnosis one time. I did the whole floating tank experience,
Yeah.
sensory deprivation thing, just to kind of understand what is it that you're going to write if you've not experienced it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do the LSD thing or whatever, but I wanted to just try something different. I did the whole sensory deprivation thing. I did hypnosis. I understood that, oh, there's a lot much more than just what I can see here and experience. My mind can, I mean, chemical doorways in my brain can open. I can see things, I can experience things. So how about you start writing in that direction? Because it's an unexplored area, just not so much in that regard. And it's basically a total sum of who we are as humans. We're not just who you can see.
Yeah.
We are our thoughts inside and all of that. And then that's it. And every now and then, writers delve into, trying mushrooms, things like that, and
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
open your mind and you begin to do all of those things. I did all of that, and then just started to understand that, oh, it's another genre, if it's a genre at all, that I need to start paying attention to.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the history, sitcoms, um, the social
Yeah.
commentary, and I do a bit of sports as well because, yeah, I love boxing, but I don't write boxing stories. I just do
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah. I mean, I know there are some, like I said, they're 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 better at one thing or another, or they prefer they enjoy. Like I said, there are some directors, they're great directors, but they may enjoy doing sci-fi, or they may enjoy doing horror, you know, that kind of thing. But I am impressed with those creators, those writers that are able to take a medium that may not typically be known for the maybe cerebral or historical or topical stories that they want to tell, but they're able to wrap it in that medium that's palatable, that people can get it. Like I think um, like Gene Roddenberry was a in his early days was a very genius writer in how he slipped social issues into a sci-fi format because he knew just making something just flat out straight socially, people are going to be more resistant to. But since
Absolutely.
sci-fi was great, he used sci-fi to talk about so many social issues that probably wouldn't have got aired any other way. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've ever watched like the early or the early Twilight Zones. If I don't,
Yeah, I did.
yeah, Rod
Yeah.
Serling
Did
was a
all of it.
master. Yeah, was a master at it. I used to love watching The Twilight Zone because he packed so much into such a fantastical sci-fi horror, just everything type of story, you know. So those writers and creators that can still get their point across, but use the medium at hand that works and that they're able to work with. Just like Esther, she's using stop motion. I think that's an amazing medium to tell the stories that she wants to
Which is
tell.
really,
There's
which
this,
is doing great. She's a
and,
pioneer in that field.
and she is, because like I told her, she's the first one so far that I've met, especially from Africa, that's doing stop motion. So I
Yeah,
mean, we have a
she's
few
the
over
only one
here.
we have here.
So that's why I enjoy following her, because she is really bringing stop motion, which I think it's another great medium for storytelling or getting ideas. That's why I just love all types of creatives, that just they take what they enjoy doing, which is telling stories or illustrations, and they find a way to get it out there. So Wayne, like I said, you have all my respect, because you put your children's book out there, you're putting Starboy out there, and you're telling your story in your own way, and using the medium that you obviously love to do, just like Esther, just like UMI and Magic Carpet. So that's why I say, there's such power in this kind of medium, because it has the ability to educate, entertain, and really tell stories that stick with people, that they don't think is
Yeah,
sticking with them because they just think they're watching a, silly cartoon or a
yeah.
silly stop motion. It's those ones, for sure. Uh, glad you agree with me, Wayne. Appreciate that. But yeah, it's and that's why I say, you know, because you have an idea, you have a story. This is such a great time as a creator. Really, if you're a creator and don't appreciate this time that you live in, you should really go back, and really not even that far. Go back 20 years, 20, 30 years, 30 years before the internet, before the iPad, before the iPhone, before Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. You'll really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I can,
I mean,
even though,
uh, like looking at how screenwriters used to work with typewriters to write screenplays, but now I got final drafts, things like that. I mean, personally, I do appreciate there's innovations that I have to handle, and it's just a lot easier to collaborate. I didn't have to see someone
no,
every now and then. I didn't have to fax or or pick a mail my script to them and get feedback. It can be done in real time. I mean, the plugins where somebody can edit for you in real time and do all of that. I mean, it's the most wonderful time for me as a creator. Honestly, I
oh
do
man.
appreciate it.
And the software that we have now, we have Unreal, we have Blender, we have all these tools now that just make it so fun for a creator that is creative on the inside and just wants to create and tell his own stories, whether they're serious, whether they're silly, whether they're educational, whether they're controversial, whatever it is. you know you have
You have
all this
everything
stuff.
to put
You
it out
have
there.
everything, that you can put, out and put it out there. And again, like I said, trust me, if you get your following, if you find you plug into your community and you have the the social proof to show studios, trust me, they'll come a running. They will. They'll come a
No,
running to try and make a deal with you or try and partner with you or whatever it is, buy you out, whatever it is. That's all they're trying to see. They want to see, do you have social proof? Do you have an idea? Do you have followers that are, do you have sales? Do you have all this stuff? Because their bottom line is money. If they don't feel like
yeah,
companies, you know, yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna label companies as just this, cutthroat thing. Obviously, their story. They want to tell stories, and trust me, I think underlying all of that is if they don't feel like it's gonna make them money, that's just the nature of investing or getting a return on your
Yeah,
investment. That's
it's,
just
it's
business.
business. It's
It's
business.
business.
It's business.
That's just the way business runs. So that is the bottom line. They want to see that it can make money. Now, that being said, there's been a lot of flops out there that they put money into that they could have put into something else.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but hit and hence takes me to the next point is, do you feel like the majority of studios now are wanting to go that safe route? Hence why you got Furious 10, Furious 9, 10, Furious 10 or Kung Fu Panda 5. They're wanting to
Yeah.
rehash stories or rehash IPs that they know people are familiar with rather than taking a chance on something fresh and new that nobody's heard of. Do you feel like studios are kind of leaning that way, or that's justified because they want to make money, or the bottom line is they need to make money, um, type of
Well,
thing?
I don't. Yeah, they're doing that quite right, but I don't think that I think that's a very limited understanding of the times that we're living in right now, because I I just like I keep telling people, this is the greatest time for stories because there are stories everywhere. Not just because there's stories everywhere, the stories are accessible. You can find a whole lot of them. There's way too many stories out there for us to just keep bringing old stuff. So the studios are run by people who just want to play safe. So this is just the politics of studios, right? I don't think now evidenced by audience participation in all the things that they're doing. I don't think they should continue to do that because there are people now saying, I don't want to see a live action um, of I don't want to see a live action adaptation of this
Yeah,
animation. I
yeah,
don't want to just think about a big studio coming out and saying we're going to do live action Boondock. I mean, it's just not going to get the
yeah.
kind of attention that you ask it. A lot of people are just going to resist that, and rightly so. So, I mean, I'm just saying they're playing safe, thinking, oh, the audience are familiar with this, the audience know this, so they are more likely. I
Yeah.
think the market research is showing that they're more likely to tune into something they're familiar with because not so many people are willing and prepared to try new stuff. But I think they're wrong. Not entirely wrong. Of course, if you have the fact it can be 100% wrong, but I don't think they're paying attention to the time really fully because there are stories that don't connect to anything in the past that has been established, but they're still making waves. So if these studios can be bold, a little more bolder than they are right now, then we're going to see big studios doing more of that than just stretching the frontiers. The most recent Bad Boys might have made the money, but I think people are just
I
saying,
didn't like
"Oh,
it.
it's so nice." Yeah, I
I
mean,
didn't.
I want to see a lot of people went to see it. It had the fun and everything, but in live action, especially, um, there's a limit to which you can use the original actors, right, to do all of that. And if you're tying into what people are familiar with, they
Yeah.
don't want to see a 90-year-old Morgan Freeman driving Miss Daisy in 2024. It's just not going to work, you know. It's not going to work. He's just going to run into more
Uh,
traffic lights
or,
and all
or
that.
or
It's just not
even
working.
or even the remakes where they bring in, like I said, I think it's you have to really, you know, you have to really do it carefully, I'll say. Because there are just some things, like I said, that just don't translate, like you said, or they shouldn't do, but they do it anyway, type of thing. Um, and I'll take this, like I said, I'll use this as an example. I'm a big comic strip. I love comic strips. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. Was I wanted to be a comic strip artist, and it was I find it hard for some comics to translate over even to animation, because you're so used to the characters and there's,
Yeah.
it's just, it just, unless it's done really well or done by the right person that really kind of understands it, it's very hard to translate something, from one medium to the other medium to another medium and have it kind of come across, well. I thought, uh, although I didn't see it, and I don't think I really wanted to see it, the live action version of The Lion King, or the CG version, I guess it was. I don't know if it was live, but
I never saw it.
I never saw it, but it got a lot of flack just because it just didn't look. I guess people were just so used to one, the 2D, and just the style of the story being told in 2D animation, and it just didn't
Had
translate
emotion.
over. Yeah, it just didn't translate over to the live action version. Now, I will say this: the play is amazing. And I don't know if the plays ever come over there to Africa, but they have a play version of The Lion King. The sets are amazing, the costumes are amazing. So that, I think, is a great transition from, if you love the the animated film, you would probably, if not more, love the play because it expanded the characters, or it brought the characters in 3D, but in such a more visceral way because it was a play, and they took such creative license in the costumes of the animals and the actors and stuff. So, like I said, you have to see it to really experience it. But I just feel like there are some things that just are better left in the medium that they were created with, or even the story. The story is better left at one. You don't have to make three, or part three or part four, unless you got a story that continues on with the art and makes it work. Like I said, like Star Wars. You know, now some people may not have liked it, but the story arc held across all three. Some better than others, but other than that, I don't think, like I said, like I don't want to see a Fast and Furious 10. I didn't, not that I even saw one. Kung Fu Panda. I loved one. I liked two, but going into three and four, it's like, you know, a boxer staying in the ring way too long, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. You should know when to leave. I
Just
mean,
know
you
when to
should know
walk
when to
away
leave.
when you're on a high and leave it at that, and move on to another story. Just my thinking.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mr. Wade says Gracie's Corner is his inspiration. And like I said, there's so many contents out there. Are you looking, because I think that's, like you said, you're teaching, you're passing on your skill, your knowledge. And again, everybody just jumping in. We're having an amazing conversation with my man MI, with Magic Carpet, head story, animation screenwriter. Um, this importance to pass on, not just to, other students, but specifically now other Nigerian creators and kids. This thing of teaching, and teaching your skill, what you learned, the things that you learned along the way. How is important is that for you? And what are some of the other things that you tell uh, these young creators as they're starting to see that they have these things in front of them that can get their idea out there? What are some of the advice that you're giving them, and tools and tips that you're telling them about?
Yeah. I do have a few original tips. Yeah, but I always relate to them the things that were told to me when I started out. I mean, things people like Rodney Van and a couple of guys told me. The first thing is find your voice. I mean, I will never forget that. Maybe other people must have told me that in one way or the other, but he said, find your voice. You have to find your own voice. You have to find your own style. Now, you're going to learn the entire principles of writing script for animation. You have to pay attention to this. You have to do this. You have to do that. But how do you want to say it? It's just like walking up to someone and say, maybe I see you on the street and say, hello, Mr. Sarah, how do you do? This is me asking how you fare. But another person will come and say, hey, what up? I mean, he's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Another person will say, yo, my man, what's going on? We're just trying to get to know how you're doing at that point. But we're saying it differently. So he's saying, if you read in this script, no matter how much you like the script, no matter how much you attach to the script, this is how that writer um, working with all his entire life experiences, everything that has made him who he is, wrote that thing. If you were the one in this situation, how would you write it? Find your own voice.
Yeah.
Find your own way of saying something. Just because something looks great done by another person doesn't necessarily mean if you go using the same method, you're also going to create something great. So
Yeah.
how are you going to do this? How do we do it? I mean, just the way our faces are different, so also our style of doing things are also different. So find your own and stick to it. So what he said, and what I come to understand with all of this is when you find your own voice, it might not be refined at that point. Just like when you see lion cops trying to roar, and then their voices sound like just domesticated. You
Yeah.
understand? Just little cats, just trying, yeah, but eventually they walk in it and it becomes a really wonderful raw when you hear it. You understand? So with time, you can polish that voice of yours, that particular thing that is unique to you. So the first thing is finding your voice. If you don't have a voice, so this is how I know people who have a voice of their own. When I come to them and say, "What is story to you? What is storytelling to you? What do you think makes a great story?" I listen to them. Some of them would say, "Oh, um, great characters, great settings." Some people say stories that sell. I mean, everyone has all of that. But when I hear someone said the story, the essence of the story, what is contained in the story, why that story is important to you and to every other person. So it has to mean something to you.
Yeah.
It has to mean something to you before it means anything to anybody. Which is
Yeah.
what we keep telling people. When they meet African creators outside, maybe when we go to some festival, sometimes when we go to Cannes, we say, okay, African creators, write us a global story. I usually say, I understand what you mean by that, but you need to understand when I tell you that every global story has a root from somewhere.
Yeah.
You understand? Because it has to have a root from somewhere before. I mean, when you say global, it does not exist in a different place. It's our world, and everything has a root from somewhere. So it has to be planted somewhere before it can make sense to anybody from anywhere. So I keep telling people find your voice, refine your voice, and understand that your story only makes sense when you understand the soul of it in that sense. And then, of course, the other generic advice: keep reading, keep writing, keep observing. A storyteller is someone who is sensitive, uh, um, who is perceptive, someone who is very intuitive, and just basically who sees meaning in everything. When you find meaning in everything, absolutely everything about around you. When you're more observant than the regular guy next door, you're going to make a great storyteller. So I
Yeah.
always tell them, polish yourself, find your own voice, polish your own voice. Do your reading, do your research, practice more, pay attention, listen, and just observe.
Yeah.
And it's just basically what I'm using, and it's working for me.
Yep, yep, yep. And like I said, some amazing advice for sure. You know how I look to do on great nuggets being dropped. Great nugget that was dropped there. Find your voice for sure. Like I said, we've been having an amazing. I always get so lost in conversations. I tell people, I could sit and talk about this kind of topic just hours and hours, and I get lost in the time. But like I said, we are already going at two and a half hours, and I always try to keep my African brothers and sisters, or even just anybody on an extreme time difference. I try to keep them mindful because it is late over there. So I appreciate
Yeah,
MI for hanging with us. But we are going to kind of bring this airplane into the landing here. Mr. Dewan, with the original 2D version, while the original 2D version remains superior, I thought seeing the 2019 live action Lion King, let me pull that back out, Lion King in theaters was a good experience. But I wonder what it would be like if the CGI characters were mute. And I think that was, I don't know. Like I said, while I didn't see it, the 3D characters just looked off to me. So I don't know. I guess everybody, chime in, post in the social pages what your thoughts were on it. I think that's what, and maybe I was used to, or just, one myopic way of seeing it with the 2D. But I've seen even CG animals, you know, even CG live action pulled off a little bit better than that. I don't know. For some reason, it just seemed off. But that, like I said, Dewan, if you haven't seen the play, you really should see the play. The play, like I said, is amazing, and like I said, it's far superior to uh, the live action version, the film, the live action film version. Now, it doesn't obviously compare to the 2D. The 2D is original, but I think that's a great example of a great transition with how they took it and took it to another medium. Just like every story is not going to be translatable to a play. You know,
yeah,
it's just it's just the nature of it. But that was good enough, and they were creative enough to make it a great experience. And I think what they did to their benefit was they made it an experience for the audience. Because a play is a live experience. And so
yeah,
going to a play, watching a play is a live experience, but they made it such an interactive experience for the audience, bringing the animals in the way they did. I think that's what makes it really, really a great transition. It's on my bucket list to experience the Lion King stage musical. I've seen it 3 times and getting ready to see it because it's here in town now. And I got a ticket for the last day, August 4th. So I'm going to see it a 4th time. I'll see it every time it comes into town because it is such a great play. Best play I've seen, ever seen. I've seen a few. Like The Color Purple. I saw The Color Purple play. That was, it was okay, but definitely, obviously, it didn't take the place of the film, but it was a decent enough transition. They didn't go so far off from the film to where it was just disassociated you with the whole story of it. So, like I said, Color Purple is a great play too, but definitely nowhere near what The Lion King is as it translates over to a play, for sure. But again, we're definitely going to have to bring you back on MI for sure on the show because, like I said, we can sit and talk about so many different
yeah.
things on this. But it has been such a great conversation, 2.5 hours for sure. And I know, like I said, it's late over there. Everybody, I hope all of you have enjoyed the show as well. Make sure, though, you connect with MI and Magic Carpet Studios. He is very active, which is his main and only platform of choice, LinkedIn, which is how we got connected. But it's a great place to connect with him. And again, not only him, but Magic Carpet Studios and what they're doing as well. Like I said, a great studio that's putting out some amazing work. Like I said, I've had a couple of people from the studio on already, which I got to bring back on. But we're definitely going to have all that information in the show notes on the YouTube channel. So make sure that you hop on over there. If you haven't caught this live or you're catching out the replay, all this information will be on the show notes for sure. But again, I can't thank you enough for, one, connecting with me in the first place, and being such a great friend to come on and share, what you're doing, what Magic Carpet's doing in the industry over in Africa, specifically Nigeria. But like I said, that's why I'm so excited about the creators like you that I get to connect with, because I love different stories, and everybody's journey is different, and people are working on some amazing things. So I love seeing that for sure. So I can't thank you enough, brother, for coming on.
I appreciate my I really really appreciate this. It's been a while I had a long phone conversation, but I love every aspect of it, man.
Awesome, awesome.
Appreciate it more.
Now,
Yeah.
if you could, hey, I know it's late, but if you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close out the show, so I can talk to you, off
No,
camera.
no problem, man.
But I'm
No
gonna
problem. No
put you in the
problem.
green room. If you hanging out for just a quick second while I close out the show, I would appreciate it. But everybody, please, please, please help me thank again, Mr. M.I. Thomas, from Lagos, Nigeria, coming on and really sharing his knowledge and his passion for writing in the industry. Hang out for a second, Lagos, or M.I. I'll be right with you. Guys, gals, this has been a fun episode for sure. Like I said, I hope you guys got some value out, because MI did drop a lot of great knowledge and a lot of great information, especially the advice of finding your voice, which he dropped a minute ago. Such great advice. And I think a lot of people, especially in this time of noise, gets kind of caught up in what other people are doing and kind of either lose their voice, or can't find their voice, or get confused and listen to somebody else. Find your voice and find your path. That's why I have such appreciation for people like Dewan, people like Wayne. uh, they found their voice, and all the other creators and friends that I've had on, they found their voice, and they're creating their kind of content and running with that. So I keep that in mind as I do this show, as I create the things that I want to create. Find my voice, and not try and compare myself to other people and what other people do. Everybody's race is different. So that's the bottom line. Everybody runs their own race. Well, with that, like I said, this has been another great episode. I cannot thank you enough. As always, it's a little long, almost 2 hours 40 minutes. We're going up on, but I cannot thank you enough for always giving me a little bit of your time uh, every Saturday. Always coming back to the episode on the channels, comments, the shares. I appreciate all of that stuff, because that just helps me to continue and fuel me to keep doing and what I'm doing, to keep continuing to make relationships and friendships with all these great people, and to continue to bring my content out to you. Miss Megan McKenna, you can check out the show on the YouTube channel. We These are the channels we stream to live. So YouTube channel, YouTube. Let me throw this up here again. YouTube. .com at Don Terrell. Subscribe so that you get notified, and you'll be notified of when the show goes live and when new content goes up on the channel. You can watch it there. You can connect with me, even though I don't show it. You can connect if you're connected with me, because I stream there to LinkedIn. But find me on LinkedIn. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, we live stream the show there as well. We also live stream the show to the Facebook group for The Color of Motion. So facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. Follow us, become a member. We live stream there as well. And we also live stream on the website for the show, which is thecolorofmotion.net. Those are the places right now, you can check out the show live. But you could always, like I said, once the show goes up on the YouTube channel, you're always able to catch all the replays from all the shows. So definitely, Megan, appreciate you stopping by and catching a little bit of this. But you could always check it out on all those channels there. I highly suggest the YouTube channel because we all, like I said, we put a lot more of the show links and the things that some of the guests mentioned throughout the show. We'll put links to. So I always suggest the YouTube channel as being the main plug. But appreciate that as well. So with that, like I said, always appreciate you giving me every Saturday. Definitely next week is going to be no exception. We got a great guest coming on and looking forward to sitting down and talking with my next guest and friend. You're not going to want to miss it. Mr. Yu-Yan Chu, animation production assistant. He's going to come on and share his knowledge and journey throughout the industry and talk about what's going on in his world. So looking forward to having Mr. Yu-Yan Chu come on next week. So you're not going to want to miss out. With that, I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great week, everybody. Cheers.